Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to Diversity in Sales, a business imperative or political minefield. We're going to find out. It's an absolute pleasure having you here. I am Janice B. Gordon, the customer growth expert and founder of Scale Your Sales Framework and host of Scale Your Sales podcast. So a little bit about me. We work with global enterprises to help them to increase sales, improve customer retention, and optimize revenue growth using a data-driven approach. Companies typically see revenues grow by 20% year on year. Now, I work with a team of expert associates and a full-time VA, Vanessa, hello, to deliver tailored solutions. So at Scale Your Sales, we help companies remove those hidden barriers to sales success. We focus on three key areas, which is revenue optimization and alignment, sales team performance, and customer growth and retention. So this means your teams close more deals, retain more customers, and consistently drive revenue. So we're here to talk about diversity in sales. Now, this is a subject that's really close to my heart. I've talked a lot about it on Scale Your Sales podcast. I have a process that I'll talk to you about to enable organizations, sales organizations to onboard, to attract more diverse teams. So it's really important to kind of understand the why behind this. So we'll be talking about the rollback in the US. I talk to a lot of my colleagues in the US, and it's been the topic of conversation, not just in the last 3 months, but actually in the last 3 years, the impact and the changes. But also for many of my US colleagues, you may not know what's happening in Europe. Is it the same? Is it different? I'll be talking about that here. And also looking at the ROI. I love to evidence in stats, in the process that I use to demonstrate the full value. Why do it? What's the ROI on diverse sales teams? And also why diversity is not just a moral imperative. I mean, that really is important, but that's often not the reason why people do it. I want to evidence to you the strategic advantage of having diverse teams and leave you with some really practical steps so that we can move forward. So yeah, hello and welcome, and make sure that you connect with me, and make sure that you leave your comments and questions, and I'll show them on screen and make sure that we hear from you. This is a discussion. I normally have another guest, but I've got so much to say here and only half an hour to do it, but I really do want to hear from you. So make sure that you comment on whatever platform you're seeing this stream, and it will come up here. I'd love you to share your experience too. So let's have a conversation. Okay, so let me start with why. Why? That's Simon Sinek. That's always a good starting point, is it? So let's not forget why. DEI and B, the belonging, is important and it's required. And when we look at the ethical responsibility, why? Why do we have an ethical responsibility? It addresses the historical inequalities to ensure fair opportunities for underrepresented groups. So what does that mean? Well, if you look at decades, years, months, even centuries, how certain groups have been disenfranchised. Now, if you're of the privileged class of people, you may, because it's not within your frame of reference, you may not be aware that the biases, we all have biases, but the biases you have, how it impacts other groups of people. And a lot of those biases are implanted you're not even aware of. So it's being aware of your biases, being aware of your privilege, and also being aware from a fairness point of view that you cannot consistently remove opportunities from people. If you want to have an organization, a business that really does capitalize on the diversity and the wealth of experiences and perspective of all people, whatever shape and form they come in. So that's the ethical responsibility, the consistent and historical inequalities that have been applied to certain groups. So it's rebalancing a lot of that. And then the other why is in terms of the social impact. Now, diverse teams foster a culture of inclusion. It attracts more people that want to be part of that. And it's particularly for the younger generations, they're really looking at this. If you have a diverse workforce, then it's more open, more welcoming. It reduces workforce discrimination. It enhances employee well-being. They look at this and they're not joining your organization unless they see it, not only within the employees, but in the leadership team as well. So if you want to be attractive to top talent, this is something that you need to do in terms of your social impact. It's a key factor in retaining top talent. And many of my generation, for me, didn't really have the option and choices, but it's something that the younger generation is looking at. So this is why it's important to make sure it continues to be on the agenda. Okay, so if we're talking about the global impact, let's look at the US and the rollback in the US and its impact. So the impact on culture, general culture, is that it reduces the focus on diversity. We've seen that through the rollback. But this shift may lead to less diverse sales teams. And I'm here to talk about sales. And so there's an impact to that, and potentially limiting the range of perspective and approaches in customer interactions. So your customers look for diverse representation within your team. And if they don't find that, because many of our audiences of customers and buyers are global, and they're looking for this as well, it makes a difference in the interaction. I mean, I tell you, I walk down the street wherever I am in the country, in the world, really, and I often nod to another Black man or woman, and it's almost like there's this kind of hidden camaraderie. And, you know, it's like saying, I understand you, I feel your pain, I know what, you know, we share a similar experience. Even if it's a French person, and I'm rubbish at speaking French, you know, we still share certain commonalities. And so there's an acknowledgement there. Well, that happens between your buyers and your sales team as well. If you're speaking the same language, you've got a similar perspective. It's a lot easier to sell if you're speaking the same language, but it's also in terms of cultural and social interaction and, you know, historical experiences as well. And then in terms of the effect on the sales teams in the perceived and priorities inclusion in your daily operation. So if you do not have a diverse team, your daily operations, that's signaling to the outside world and also within in the team as well. And often, you know, organizations are rebranding the DE&I into global inclusion teams. That is a real signal as well that it's really not important here. And so that's going to signal externally as well in that, you know, people will not want to join your organization. I think it's really interesting that companies like Goldman Sachs are removing diverse board requirements, and they're, you know, completely dropping this. And that's really interesting. I think it's interesting because if we think back to the financial, 2006 to 2010, the financial crisis, the banking crisis, and who was that led by? A lot of the financial institutions. And isn't it interesting that they're turning the table and that they're reducing that diversity of thought, diversity of experience and perspective from their decision-making boards? Don't you find that really interesting? That's a big signal, isn't it? So this is going to potentially affect the decision-making and strategic direction. I just think this is crazy, but interesting as well. So it's also like a shift in talent management as well, and that we may change how sales leaders approach recruiting, development, and retention of diverse talent. This is speared on by the rollback in the US. So I'm going to be talking to you about what's happening in Europe as well. So really think this is kind of coming from the US and the impact on the US and other global companies if they have US arms. So if we look at the potential consequences to this, it reduces innovation. Diverse teams are known. There's evidence, there's research that known to be drive innovation. So it means potentially this rollback means your organization is going to be less innovative. In terms of customer representation too, less diverse sales forces may struggle to effectively represent and understand the diverse customer base, potentially affecting the sales performance and customer relationships. That can't be good for your organization if you're rolling back. And then what about employee engagement? A rollback of DEI and B, the belonging initiatives, may negatively impact employee engagement and a sense of belonging, which is crucial for high-performing sales team. A sense of belonging, the teamwork that you're asked to do, that's going to affect your sales. And then talent attraction, retention. Companies are scaling back their commitments, will face challenges of attracting top talent. As I say, younger generations are prioritizing inclusive workplaces. So despite this rollback trends in the US, some companies that are still maintaining the stance and sales leaders who continue to prioritize this will see that it is a competitive advantage. So let's just look at some of the more consequences. Now, Target, it was in the news, it's been in Forbes magazine. They lost 15.7 billion in market value after shares fell by 22% in November the 20th, 2024. Now, Target is facing the harsh realities of their actions and have consequences by ending their DE&I initiatives. The retailer is currently being sued for alleged hiding the risks of ending the company's DE&I, diversity, equity and inclusion program, after customers were angry about this and boycotted them. So now they're going through a lawsuit has been filed January 24th, where Target has, when Target announced the ending of the DE&I initiative. So this is costing companies. And then more recently, since January 2025, Elon Musk has experienced a significant decline in his wealth. Hooray! Primarily due to the sharp drop of Tesla's stock price. March 11th, 2025, Elon Musk lost 126 billion in personal wealth. I don't feel too sorry for him, do you? Yeah, since beginning the year, and according to Bloomberg's Billionaires Index, by March 13th, his losses were reported to have reached 200 billion, setting a new record for the largest personal wealth loss in history. Additionally, reports suggest that between January 17th and early in March, his net worth declined by 148 billion. We're not talking millions, we're talking billions here. Now, the primary driver for Tesla's stock performance has dropped by approximately 38% to 45%. That's the drop in their stock price in 2025 alone. Now, factors contributing to this decline is really the political controversy involving Musk, and also broader investor concerns about Tesla's valuation and future growth rates. My sister-in-law has handed back her Tesla, and for many people, their Teslas obviously have fallen in value. I mean, she was really lucky. She kind of managed to get the full value back by trading it in. But there was a lot of people like her that don't really want to invest in this company anymore. So there's real financial consequences to this. So what's happening in Europe? For my US friends, this isn't rolled out all over the world. So the European perspective on DE&I initiatives hasn't really changed. The commitment continues, unlike in the US. European companies are largely maintaining or even expanding their DE&I efforts. Now, leaders, organizations like Kearney and Clyde and Co are emphasizing the initiatives on DE&I into broader ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance strategies. So it's becoming part of their long-term business success. Also, forthcoming laws here in the UK, UK's Employment Rights Bill, are expected to reinforce workplace inclusion by addressing issues like neurodiversity and gender equality. So it's reinforcing it here in the UK. But also many organizations are kind of widening out their approach and really making D&I count by having a data-driven approach. So European firms are increasingly focusing on the measurable outcomes of DE&I initiatives, aligning them with their business objectives to demonstrate real ROI while fostering inclusivity. So rest assured, my American friends, this is not being rolled out throughout the world. And what's interesting, I was speaking to some US companies here in the UK, and they were being asked various questions about how that's affecting them here. And interestingly, it is not. They're still kind of not so much doubling down, but quietly continuing what they did before this rollback in the US. So there's very much a separation even within US companies between what's happening in the US and what's happening here in Europe. So rest assured, there certainly is no sense of a rollback certainly in the UK or in the rest of Europe. So we're talking about ROI. So let's kind of move on to that. And please do, I'd love to see your questions. Let me just double check and see if there's any questions that's come through. I want to make sure I don't miss any. No, but please do, stop me and share your experiences. I'd love to find out. In fact, perhaps let me ask you a few questions. How are you seeing D&I initiatives being rolled back or removed or eliminated within your organizations? I'd love to hear what you're seeing. So let me just see if I can post a question to you just to see. Oh, no, that's not the question that I wanted. Let me get another question. I've lost my questions. I had a few kind of, oh, here we go. Let me. Yeah, I've got some questions on there. Yeah, what are you seeing in your companies in terms of, do you believe diversity initiatives can improve sales performance? If why or why not? I'd love to hear from you. So here are some questions to you. So let's hear from you. All right. Okay. So we've talked about the European perspective. Let's look at the ROI. In diverse sales teams. What is it, and is it worthwhile? Okay, so in terms of increased innovation, I've mentioned that, but there is a lot of research around to say diverse teams are more innovative and its impact on teams generally. But in terms of sales team, its impact in terms of problem solving and product development. So it certainly does increase innovation, creativity. In fact, my MBA, my dissertation was all around diverse teams and the impact of innovation and creativity. So I've known about this for the last 20 years, but particularly in sales, we're talking about problem solving. And what are salespeople? They are problem solvers. And then in terms of market relevance, I talked about this, the representation of your sales teams helps your sales team connect with their customers, their diverse customers base, and it improves customer satisfaction and their loyalty to you. So that's another area. In terms of the performance metrics, studies consistently show that companies with diverse leadership outperform financially. In fact, McKinsey's has highlighted that diverse organizations are more likely to achieve above average profitability. So in terms of sales leadership, in terms of your leadership team, in terms of your sales workforce, it's good all rounds. Companies committed to DE&I are better equipped to adapt. And we're in a world where we're constantly having to adapt to new market changes and pressures. And so due to the inclusive decision-making process, the improvements with having a diverse team, it means that your operation, your team is more adaptable. So in terms of the ROI, I have various kind of like research, the Unleash.RI, Diverse Equity and Inclusion D&I 2025 cannot be playing it safe. And it talks about HR teams should share why D&I is here to stay. And they've got various research from the McKinsey's report. So if you want to look that up, there's evidence to show the ROI and why we need to be doing this. So if we also look at the financial advantage of diverse teams on executive teams, it has increased from 15% in 2015 to 39% in 2023. So the financial advantage is really clear. All right, so I've done a lot of talking here. I'd love to get some questions from you, but I'm just going to kind of wrap up with some more actionable steps for you, because I really want to make this proactive in terms of what you can do and why you should do it, and share a story with you as well. So diversity has directly contributed to sales growth through an innovation and customer representation. I've talked about that. You're more relatable and diverse perspectives in terms of innovation, creativity, and decision making. It's important that we advocate for a data-driven D&I strategies that are clearly aligned to inclusive goals and measurable business outcomes. Otherwise, we're not going to do it. We need to be able to prove not only to ourselves, to the wider communities, that this works. We've got research evidence to say why diverse teams, the wider perspective, their problem solving, and in terms of the attracting other people to your diverse culture are the top talent. A data-led approach that we take is in terms of sales assessments. Unlike competitor generic personality or behavior assessments, ours, the one that I use, is the only sales-specific assessment that benchmarks against your industry's best and also quantifies revenue loss due to competency and process gaps. It's verified and it's predictive for on-the-job success. It gives you a clear and actionable insights, turning good teams into the top consistent performers. This is why I absolutely love it, because it gives you the actionable strategies and ROI. Now, how do we help diverse team sales? How do we help you recruit diverse sales talents? And the process removes bias, removes all of the bias in the hiring process. And when you're looking at CVs, the predictive effectiveness is only 20%, interviews only 20%. The actual process we're using to so-called attract and the best is really not predictive. And it's not effective either. So we use a different process that is data-led in terms of building high-performing and inclusive teams that removes the hiring bias. And, you know, it prioritizes the potential of people and indicates whether they're coachable, whether they're high-performing candidates, even from non-traditional backgrounds. So what we tend to do is kind of keep dipping in the same pool. And so we pass around poor performing salespeople because we're afraid to go outside of our normal pools. But this assessment allows you to do that. And it simply finds the cream of the crop from non-traditional backgrounds. And this enables you to bring in people that have non-traditional experience, but you can absolutely guarantee they have the highest potential to be in the top quartile within the first year, and we give you a guarantee of that. It also, our process also ensures fairness, and I talked about fairness at the top of this. And uses a data-driven benchmarks and applies the same standards to all applicants, which doesn't always happen in interviews. It expands the talent pool and opens opportunities for women, people of color, and career shifters, gives them fair opportunities beyond the typical sales profile. And it also supports retention, helps you to onboard by giving you the coaching notes that are targeted to that individual, so that it provides personalized coaching insights that ensures diverse hires succeed and thrive. And in fact, all hires succeed and thrive because you're really focused on the individual, coaching the individual rather than one size fits all. All right. Okay. So I've got a quick story, and I'm going to also kind of share with you our next live, which is the 15th of April. So please make sure that you come along to that next live. So I think it's coming up now, 15th of April, where I have Dr. Gemini Note, Global Director in Growth Productivity at Lind. We will be talking about sales leadership in the next session. So make sure that you come along to that. My quick story is that 2 years ago, or 2023, we had the first Women in Sales panel that I hosted. And one of the questions from the audience, it was the most successful session in the Sales Innovation Expo. And I've spoken there for the last 5 years, but I was hosting this panel and then I did a keynote. And it was a gentleman got up after all the hearing from the panelists and was very much pointing the finger and was saying, what are you doing? I've tried to recruit, and what are you and the panelists, I want to hear from you. What are you doing? And before I handed it over to the panelists, I got the mic and I said, well, actually, when you do this, it's really doing this. And it's about looking at what you're doing, why people do not want to join your culture. And actually, by the gentleman getting up and doing that, gave us quite a lot of information as to why women and diverse people would not want to join his culture. And often what happens is the first phase is that you attract and you recruit people, but you don't change the culture. So the culture still has the barriers within it, and they're not going to progress, so they leave and they don't stay. The next stage is that you begin to change the culture, they stay, but they don't get the same level of opportunities. So it takes a lot, an awful lot, in order to change cultures. But the thing is, I've talked about what are the benefits of doing that. What is the real ROI? Nearly 1/4 of women B2B sales report actively job searching due to lack of advancement and opportunities. So there's no point recruiting diverse and women in sales. And what I said to that gentleman is the easiest thing and the most difficult thing, but the most impactful thing that you can do is recruit a diverse or women sales leader, because they will naturally recruit a diverse sales team. They will naturally attract a diverse sales team. But in order to recruit that person, you have to start changing things within your own culture. And they will help you to do that, but you've got to listen to them, because they have lots of experience, but they're often not heard. So if you want to have an impact on your organization, recruit senior leadership, diverse senior leadership, and that will begin to change your culture. So that's my kind of like quick action note to you all going forward. All right, so we've just gone past the hour. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me on this session. I really do appreciate you. Hopefully I'll see you on the 15th talking about sales leadership. All right, you take care. Thank you. Please do, if you've got any questions, I will go back in the recording and have a look and answer them. So you take care. Thank you. Bye.